to the first episode of One Pittsfield with Mayor Marchetti. This bi-weekly show will bring you news from the mayor's office on a regular basis. We will do these shows in conjunction with City Council meeting weeks. Today, we're going to talk about what we've been up to since Inauguration Day, a review of our first City Council meeting, and a highlight of what's ahead. So we've had meetings after meetings after meetings. We've met with many constituents over the past 3 weeks and attended some community events. I attended my first City Council meeting as mayor, and I also participated in my first school committee meeting. It was a pleasure to be at Egremont School for their DARE graduation, to watch 4 fifth grade classes graduate as DARE graduates. I was honored to be there with Officer Darren Derby, Superintendent Curtis, School Committee Chair Cameron, some other members of the school committee, and the DA and the sheriff. It was a really enlightening experience. Not my first time at a DARE graduation, but the first time at a DARE graduation as the mayor. Just last week, I had the opportunity of going to Melbourne Place and visiting with 2 residents. One who turned 102 years old and the other that turned 100. When I left my office to go to the event, my staff said to me, "Can you do me a favor? Can you just find out how can you and what does it take to live to 102? So I'll just share with you. And one of the ladies told me, plenty of exercise, walk 2 miles a day, and oh, by the way, don't forget your glass of red wine every day. That will help you out. Ironically, I was able to cut my first ribbon for what was a competing bank for my 35-year career. But it was my honor to join the folks at MBT Bank in downtown Pittsfield as we cut their ribbon where they moved across the street from 54 North to 75 North. I was also able to join our ARPA partners for a 2-hour meeting, helping them engage in the work that they're doing, helping them network and work collaboratively together rather than each organization working on their own. I've begun review of boards and commissions to identify our current vacancies and to see where we can add members. To learn more about our boards and commissions, I welcome you to check out the city's website at cityofpittsfield.org. And if you have an interest in serving in a board, please send a letter of interest and a copy of your resume to the mayor's office at cityofpittsfield.org. I think this puts me at a great place to be able to say, hey, let's kind of introduce our office and let's say, how do you get in touch with our office? So I'm honored to have 2 great staff people. My executive assistant is Brittany Walsh. She will be the person that will most likely be answering all of your calls and scheduling meetings with you so that you can get in to see me. That number is 413-499-9321, or you can send an email to mayor's office at cityofpittsfield.org. Brittany will be eager to help you with a smile on her face for every complaint that she gets. But I'm also honored to have someone who's no stranger to City Hall. She has worked in the city clerk's office, she's worked in the conservation office, and she's worked in the mayor's office. So she has about as much tenure in City Hall as I do, and that is Catherine Van Bramer. Catherine is the Director of Administrative Services, and Catherine also helps orchestrate a lot of the day-to-day happenings that are here, and she's also our Chief Public Information Officer. So I think our first City Council meeting was, pretty uneventful for the most part. We made some boards and commission appointments, including some members to the Human Service Advisory Council and some members to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We accepted quite a few donations and grants, the first being the $8 million from General Electric, which is the Rest of Riverville settlement. Those funds are being placed into our GE Economic Development Fund and will be used for job creation and economic development, just as we have with the first initial $10 million that we've got from General Electric. We have some exciting stuff coming down the pike, and as promised, we will bring forth a small business trust fund appropriation in the first meeting in February. We accepted $500,000 from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the beginning of the Pontuzic Lake Park project. That will be an exciting project to rehabilitate and renovate our Pontuzic Lake. We received a donation from Christopher Gould for the RSVP program, and we received a $10,000 grant from the Mass Emergency Management for Hazardous Materials Planning Grant that Chief Salmons will take the lead. And the grant isn't just a City of Pittsfield grant, but it is a grant for all of Berkshire County. We had some petitions from councilors. The first is a petition from Councilor Amuso reflecting on the budget. And Councilor Amuso's request was that we put forth a level funded budget where we can. There seems to be some folks that took the back and forth between myself and members of the council as something that Mayor Marchetti is not interested in trying to save the taxpayers' money. Let's correct the record. That is not a true statement. But I do believe that throughout the campaign and my inaugural address, we talked about looking for ways of reducing costs or raising revenues for the city. And so I just thought it was too early to be put into that position to be able to make those choices. And I also think that if that's the direction that we're going to take, and we are going to attempt to be as level funded as we can, there is the possibility that services may need to be cut. And when that happens, that shouldn't be something that happens inside the mayor's office behind closed doors. That is something that should be happening as a greater conversation with the members of the city council. And so as I begin my process in the next week or two of starting to build a budget, we are going to be asking ourselves the questions, not what have we always done and how do we do it, but what can we do differently? We're going to ask ourselves, what are our priorities? And I think that I'm pretty well in touch with what our priorities are. When it snows, we want our roads plowed. When we get to the wonderful spring pothole season, we want our potholes filled. We want our trash collected. We want our police to respond in a time that is reasonable. We want fire to respond in a time that's reasonable. We want schools to produce a quality education. So all of those pieces will be part of defining what our priorities are and defining how we want to move forward as a community. Are there ways that we can make reductions? Sure we can. But are they to the level that we may need? Councilor Warren submitted a petition looking for me to investigate and incorporate some addiction recovery program services from another community in Massachusetts. We have begun having conversations with many of our partners about how we are going to create the task force for mental health and substance use disorder. We know through the data that we've been collecting that many of our problems with the homeless situation, our panhandling problem, are all coming from mental health and substance use issues. We will be rolling up our sleeves within the next month, creating an introductory meeting of all the stakeholders involved that have some kind of desire to be part of that process. We will be looking at the social service agencies and looking for those agencies to provide us a representative, but we're also going to be looking for people who have lived that experience, who have overcome those challenges, who can also provide a different perspective. And lastly, we will look for people who have lived that experience but through another person, because I think they'll also bring an added perspective to what we need. We have an internal ARPA meeting set up to begin looking at ways of being able to fund this task force initially through the ARPA funding, and then we are already working on meetings with our federal delegation to look for additional funding. If folks are interested in serving on this task force, please contact my office again, 413-499-9321, or by sending an email to mayorsoffice@cityofpittsfield.org, and we'll be happy to have a conversation about your involvement. I think the last petition that came forward was Councilor Amuso looking to establish a committee to review the needs of the downtown. During my campaign and during my inaugural address, I made a commitment to work with the downtown businesses and stakeholders, and I've already begun that process. We have set a meeting in early February with the stakeholders. We've invited both members of the Downtown Pittsfield Inc. Association, so no greater stakeholders than downtown businesses themselves. And we've actually reached out to some residents that play a role in our downtown and asked them to be there. I don't want that meeting to be criticism after criticism after criticism. I think we all recognize the fact that our downtown needs some attention. I think we can look at our downtown and just say from an aesthetics point, it needs some work. We need to ensure that as we enter this spring, our downtown looks beautiful, and we already have a plan with Downtown Blooms to begin that process. So we need to ensure that come April 1st, we are holding up our end of the bargain and doing those pieces. We need some additional police presence, as we've talked about during the campaign, but we need to include some mental health personnel with that piece. And lastly, we need to make it a commitment to hold folks accountable for their actions in downtown. And so if someone is just hanging in downtown, there's nothing wrong with that. But if people are doing illegal activities while they're hanging in downtown, we need to take steps to move them along and get that unwanted behaviors off of North Street. We need to recognize the difference between aggressive panhandling and panhandling. And currently, panhandling is legal, and there's not much we can do. But if a panhandler is assaulting or there's an altercation, that's a different story, and folks should immediately call 911, and a police officer will respond and take care of the issue. As we move forward, we should be looking at solutions and not rehashing the past problems. We know where we have fallen down, and we know where we need to go forward. And so as we move forth together, if you have an interest, again, I'm going to repeat myself. If you have an interest in serving the City of Pittsfield on a board or commission, please call the office at 413-499-9321 and let us know your interest. I may not be able to accommodate everyone's request, but we will keep it in files for each of the various boards and commissions, and when we have openings, we will be happy to engage in a conversation to put you there. So the next meeting is pretty exciting, I think. We are going to actually replace myself on the Mobile Home Rent Control Board, a board that doesn't meet often, but when they do, it's about establishing rent for our mobile home parks. And so we are tapping two people, Jay Ogle to replace my seat on the board. Jay is a person in Pittsfield who is employed with a local financial institution, but more importantly, Jay got involved with the Citizens Academy a couple years ago and showed some interest in the city and eagerly accepted when we reached out and said, how would you like a seat on the Mobile Home Rent Control Board? We're going to replace Justine Dodds as a member of the Mobile Home Rent Control Board with Nate Joyner. So we'll have those two appointments. As we've gone through this appointment process so far, I'm looking to engage people that have never been engaged before, but I'm also looking for people who've been engaged that want to continue to do good work for Pittsfield. And so that brings me to my next appointment. We are asking former Councilor Karen Kalinowski to serve on the Council on Aging Board. When Councilor Kalinowski was in office, she was a faithful attendee on the Monday before City Council meetings at the Senior Center and involved in having conversations with the seniors. Councilor Kalinowski took great efforts into ensuring that the senior population was listened to, and I feel that putting her into the Council on Aging Board, where she can be a spokesperson and a representative for the senior population, is a win for Pittsfield. We will be making some reappointments to the Homeless Advisory Committee. So we will be reappointing Newell Young, Chris Halley, Aaron Forbush, Kim Borden, Justine Dodds, and Karen Ryan to the board. Most of these individuals are involved in one of the social service agencies that are key players in the homeless situation. I'm also going to be replacing myself on the Homeless Advisory Commission, as I am no longer a city councilor, and we are going to be appointing Councilor Cavey as the representative from the city council. There's some exciting times ahead. with our schools and the consolidation study that is happening. January 18th and January 25th, there are public meetings about the school consolidation process. But if you go to the City of Pittsfield's Facebook page, both of those events are put there. And so that brings me to one of the last appointments I'm doing is Frank Laragione to the School Building Needs Commission. The School Building Needs Commission is going to be tasked with a pretty huge effort in a short period of time as we begin the process of having a conversation about what our schools will look like in the future and our consolidations. And so as a possibility in those consolidations, if there is the need to to build a new school, we will, between now and April, needing to be developing a statement of interest to be able to provide to the School Building Needs Commission. And those hoops mean that the School Building Needs Commission needs to hash that out and provide that to the school committee. The school committee will need to accept it and forward it to the City Council, and the City Council will need to also vote on it and bring it forward. Those all have to happen in about a 2.5 month period of time. So the School Building Needs Commission has some work cut out for us, and we'll be looking to kind of streamline that process to be the most efficient one we can to meet the deadlines. On that agenda, we also have several more grants. So we have the Violence Against Women grant that is being awarded to the Pittsfield Police Department, and we'll be working with our partners at the Elizabeth Freeman Center. This is a grant that we have received for several years, so this is a grant that we are receiving for another time, and we'll be working with our partners at the Elizabeth Freeman Center to meet the goals of that grant. And that grant is just shy of $65,000. We have a grant, another grant for the Pittsfield Police Department that is our Shannon grant that works with high-risk individuals between the ages of 14 and 23, I believe. That grant is about $410,000. This is also a grant that the city has received a number of times, and we'll be working with our partners at 18 Degrees to be able to see that grant through. We've received a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife. That grant is for $637,500. This grant is going to be helping us limit the amount of nutrients and phosphorus that is traveling the Housatonic River that eventually ends up in the Long Island Sound. And lastly, probably one of the more heartfelt ones that you accept is a donation from Connor and Benjamin Westlake. Both of those individuals are working on an Eagle Scout project, and they are in the process of donating picnic tables, benches, and a patio to the Pittsfield Airport. And so it's kind of nice to see our young future leaders getting involved as an Eagle Scout and creating a project for their Eagle Scout that benefits the city of Pittsfield. During our next City Council meeting, we will have an update from Commissioner Morales in regards to some petitions that Councilor Musso asked in regards to road work, and he has a presentation about road work for the last 3 to 5 fiscal years of how many roads were done, and also what we can expect in fiscal year 24. In fiscal year 23, at the suggestion of the City Council, Mayor Tyrer appropriated $7.5 million of free cash for road work to be able to advance the purpose of doing roads without having to borrow the money. And so there are still funds left from that year's appropriation, and in the coming months we'll be working on another free cash appropriation for some additional road work to finish out the fiscal year 24 road work projects. There is a petition coming forth from the Community Development Board in regards to a housing development zone change and a 10-year increment exemption for 100 Wendell Ave. Both of those came out of the Community Development Board and the Committee on Economic Development favorably and will be before the City Council. Other petitions that are coming forward from members of the City Council, Councilor Scher and Musso are requesting installation of a solar-powered flashing stop sign at both the intersections of Highland and Hancock, and also at the crossing of Lakeway and Valentine Road. President White has referred that petition to the Traffic Commission. There are 3 petitions that are being referred to the mayor. The first is from citizen Alex Blumen, requesting the mayor to establish a supplemental mattress recycling program for those individuals that can't afford the $55 mattress fee to have them taken away. There's a petition from Councilor Persip asking the mayor to use $1 million of free cash for our long-standing stormwater infrastructure work that needs to be completed, and we will look at that petition and look at the areas that are there. My concern is free cash the right appropriation for that. I think that as we go forward, we're a city that we know that we have tons of infrastructure problems, and our free cash was certified at $8.1 million back in December. At the last city council meeting, we also transferred about $500,000 of that money to the opioid trust that those funds were received, and the trust was never established, and so we established that trust. So we have about $7.6 million of free cash. As I alluded to earlier, we'll be looking to make an appropriation to do road work with that. And my guess at this stage of the game, it's probably $2.5 million worth of road work that we will be putting forward. And so you quickly see that we're down to about the $5 million mark. I also want to explore using free cash differently than has been done in the past. And so I know there are some vehicles that need to be replaced, specifically within the fire department. So over the years, they have 2 command vehicles that need to be replaced that will be roughly $80,000 a piece. Do we borrow those monies, or do we use our free cash so that we don't have to pay debt service for the next 5, 10, 20 years? And also, for fiscal year 26, we'll probably be looking for an additional fire engine. Again, an appropriation of about $650,000 to $800,000. Is that a borrowing, or is that a free cash appropriation at some point in time? And when we talk about infrastructure issues, let's just talk about the police station. Let's just talk about some of our school buildings. Let's just talk about some of the needs of City Hall and why we need 100 North. And so when we talk about our infrastructure problems and the fact that we have deferred maintenance for all these years, I think the conversation about infrastructure needs to be a holistic approach and not a Band-Aid approach step by step, but we will take the proposal from Councilor Persip and put it into some consideration, as well as looking to see if we can find ways to assist with the mattress collection. And, you know, as someone who was chair of the Morningside Initiative, I know what it was like to be involved in a neighborhood cleanup, both from the Morningside and West Side neighborhoods, and what could we do citywide besides the hazardous waste cleanup to be able to help the residents of Pittsfield. And so when we explore Alex Blumen's petition, we'll also explore that on a greater scale of what can we do to help the residents of Pittsfield. Councilor Warren is requesting the reinstatement of the ARPA quarterly status reports. I've already sent a message to Councilor Warren informing him that they were not discontinued, and hopefully in February we will have a report from the ARPA manager, Gina Armstrong, that will come forward. So we've already made the conversation to Councilor Warren that these are happening, and you know, this goes to my greater conversation about communication, because a simple call to my office, I could have said that we are happy to continue to provide the updates because I think they're valuable, and as soon as that fourth quarter report is ready, we will present it to the City Council and also put it on the website so the residents can see. And so in some of these cases, communication is going to be the key to these. And if we want to petition us to death, that's fine. But I think I want to open an inclusive conversation with members of the City Council. It's been really neat in the first couple weeks of being in office to have councilors just stop in to say, hey, do you have a moment? And that's the open door type of policy that we're trying to create. When you walk into the mayor's office, I can't guarantee that I'm sitting at my desk doing absolutely nothing that you can walk into my office, but my staff has done a great job in the first 3 weeks of ensuring that everybody who wants an appointment can get an appointment, whether it be right at that very given moment or within a couple days. And so I think it's imperative to emphasize my desire of being open and being out. And, lunch hours are spent walking downtown Pittsfield to be able to connect and be involved with people. And so I think that that's really kind of a fascinating time. A couple more petitions that are there. One, Councilor Warren is looking for us to accept Mass General Law Chapter 59, Section 5N, for a tax exemption for veterans. As we saw or know recently, the state changed the exemption level for senior work-off program, increasing the amount from $1,000 to $2,000. I know that Councilor Warren mentioned that at a meeting, but Finance Director Kerwood mentioned to me almost immediately in the beginning, and so we're there. Councilor Warren also wants to address concerns of the local cannabis revenues. I think we've had that conversation thousands of times already, or where those funds go. Prior city councils created 25% to the stabilization fund, 25% to the public works stabilization fund, and 50% to the general operating. I'm willing to have a conversation with the councilors, and if we want to change those, that's up for conversation. And at our last meeting, we had a gentleman come forward requesting a resolution in support of a paint stewardship program, and Councilor Warren has picked that up. So as you can see, we've been pretty busy in the first couple of weeks in office. Just kind of want to share, drop the excitement for some future meetings, and I'm hoping for the first meeting in February, maybe the second meeting in February, but we are working with 2 local businesses or 2 area businesses. One will be a consolidation into Pittsfield, and I'm hoping to be able to share much more with you at our next show as to who those companies are and the jobs that will be created for Pittsfield, and what we as the city of Pittsfield will do to help them make that challenge, but as well as we attend the red carpet meetings, what can we do to ensure that the Commonwealth is there also to support them and bring them in? So we've been working, and I can't wait to run into you in town. It's been interesting when I run into folks because am I Pete, am I Mayor Pete, am I Mayor Marchetti? All 3 of those work for me. I'm just like you. I'm a citizen in Pittsfield working hard to make sure that Pittsfield becomes a better place. So I want to say thank you for joining me for the first episode of One Pittsfield from the Mayor's Office. And I look forward to seeing you soon with more updates and news from the corner office. But I will preface that some of our shows may not necessarily be from the corner office. I want to take you on the road, and so some of the shows may be from the highway garage or from other public buildings in the city of Pittsfield. As we go forward, we're also going to bring in some of the staff so that you know who's working for you and who's solving your problems. So with that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of One Pittsfield from the Mayor's Office, and we'll see you soon.